Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the RDH Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chad, joined alongside by me, brother Tanner. How you doing, man? It is officially week one. Officially week one. How we doing over there?
If you can't see me, I'm excited. I'm putting up the goalpost because week one starts tomorrow. We got the Chiefs and the Lions playing on Thursday Night Football to open up the season. I am so excited. I can't explain my excitement.
Exactly. It's week one. It is arguably the best time of the year. It's tough for me because I really like the draft too. That's another really good time of the year. But it's like we said, week one. Today we're gonna hit five matchups. That's gonna be our weekly matchups. We're gonna hit the Thursday night game, three Sunday games. Then we're gonna hit the Monday matchup as well. Then we got five teams with the most pressure entering into week one. That's gonna be fun. And then obviously we got some fantasy football stuff. We got five players to start and five players to sit. Tanner, I don't think we can wait any longer. You ready to get into this Thursday night matchup?
Dude, I've been waiting for like 6 months.
Here we go. And we're going to start it off, like I said, Thursday night matchup, Chiefs versus Lions. I have to put it out there. We don't know if Travis Kelce's going to play yet. That's obviously the biggest question mark going into this game. Without Travis Kelce, the Chiefs are a completely different team because they don't have a Tyreek Hill. Now, they have a really good running back, with Isaiah Pacheco. They have a really, really good running back with him. So, oh, yeah. And they also got that really good guy named Patrick Mahomes. So, all I'm saying, yes, they may be a little bit of a different team without Kelsey, but hey, man, I'm not going to bet against the Chiefs. Even if Kelsey doesn't suit up, I'm not betting against the Chiefs. Who do you got, Chiefs Lions?
I mean, I like okay, let's look at the game here, I could go Lions. I could. There's a world in which I go Lions. But I'm not going to because you just can't pick against the reigning Super Bowl champions, the reigning MVP, in Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. It's just not a good idea. It's kind of like back in the day when people used to pick against Tom Brady, and it's starting to get to that point with Mahomes. And I'm not picking against him, man. Especially against the Lions. I know they're good. I know they've gotten better, and I am a believer in the offense. Trust me, I am. But it's still Patrick Mahomes. It's still the Chiefs. It's the first game of the season. If anyone is going to mess up, it's going to be the Lions, not the Chiefs.
Exactly. And you said it, Patrick Mahomes. That's who they got. That's who the Chiefs are going to lean on. And that's who they've leaned on and won a couple Super Bowls with them and a couple MVPs too. So, like we said, we're not betting against the Chiefs. Each week, we're going to hold a tally with Tanner and I. We're going to see how we do against each other. We're obviously both picking the Chiefs to win this one. Sorry, Lions fans. We got some Lions listeners out there. I know we do, but we just can't give it to you yet. And also, you're playing the reigning Super Bowl champs, and even without Kelsey, they're still the Super Bowl champs. So that's the Thursday game, and you've got a young Lions team, and you also have a Lions team that isn't necessarily at their 100% firing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've got a really good wide receiver who's going to step in and be their number two. With Jameson Williams, who's suspended right now. In week one, a lot of teams look really sluggish, but Super Bowl champs, I don't know if the Chiefs have ever looked sluggish. So I'm going to go Chiefs on this one. Tanner's going Chiefs. Then we're jumping to Sunday. We're gonna talk Bengals Browns. Tanner, kick us off with Bengals Browns.
It's hard. Let me tell you. Let me start out with that. It's difficult because I really do think the Browns have had a really good offseason, and I think they've assembled. Regardless of all the controversy around them, I think they've assembled a good roster and they've improved over the offseason. With the Bengals, they've also kind of improved. So it's kind of hard to pick. But I will go the Bengals just because I think they're a better team, especially right now. It's hard to pick a Browns team that hasn't shown you anything. Being a Cowboys fan, we've said like this team is great on paper for years and years, but that doesn't mean anything when you actually get to the game. So I'm picking the Bengals. I just think, come on, it's Joe Burrow. Come on.
Yeah, it's really hard to pick against the Bengals in this one. I'm obviously going Bengals too. You said it. The Browns are unproven at this point. They need to
hmm
prove to not only the fan base but the entire NFL that they are the team that they were a couple years ago. Because last year they completely fell off, largely due to quarterback play and other things surrounding that team with injuries and inconsistent quarterback play as well. A lot of defense didn't play that well either during some games. They got some unlucky breaks, but the Browns overall took a massive step back last year, and they need to make that step up this year because that division is no joke.
Mm-hmm.
And you have two teams in that division that are going to be fighting for a playoff spot, and the Pittsburgh Steelers haven't gone negative under Mike Tomlin. So, you know what I mean? The Browns are kind of sitting there slotted in that number 4 spot. It's hard for me to say they're going to get out of it unless Deshaun Watson gets back to Deshaun Watson of the Houston Texans and Amari Cooper gets back to, I mean, not Amari Cooper gets back because he's still hooping, but at the same time in big pressure situations, in Dallas you saw him. Everybody knew they were going to Amari Cooper on third down pre-CeeDee Lamb. You know what I mean? Michael Gallup injury. Everybody knew that Dak was going to Amari Cooper, but they couldn't stop it even if they double covered it and Dak threw a ball 5 yards over his head. Amari still came down with it. I haven't seen that Amari Cooper in a little bit, but also, let's be fair, inconsistent quarterback play is kind of the theme here with the Cleveland Browns. And then you have a team with the Bengals who are riding hot right now in the AFC, and arguably you can't say that they're not a Super Bowl favorite in the AFC. You really can't. That team is only gotten better, and the only question is what's going on with Joe Burrow's leg. Is Joe Burrow's leg 100%? Because he takes a lot of hits, and not only a lot of hits, the most hit quarterback coming into the league. You know what I mean? Statistically speaking, and he already had a knee injury. So if the Bengals don't have Joe Burrow, then yeah, it's a wrap. You know what I mean? But they have Joe Burrow. He came out today on Instagram, I think, or yesterday, and said he's back. He's ready to go. So you can't pick against the Bengals. You can't pick against a Jamar Chase that's just hungry, a T. Higgins that's hungry. You know what I mean? They got so many playmakers on that offense. I could keep going down the list with, Joe Mixon and everybody else, but it's just too star-studded of a team. And you got, once again, Joe Burrow sitting back there at quarterback. Cleveland, I'm sorry, but you're going to be 0-1. You know what I mean? You're going to be 0-1.
It sucks. But, I don't know. I mean, there's like, if any team in the NFL has like a chip on their shoulder, I think it's Cleveland. You know what I mean? I think they've got a lot to prove, and I think that they can prove it, given they got to go out there and actually do it.
Yeah, and that's the hard part, right, is actually doing it. You don't know if, you don't know what you have until the season actually starts. You don't know if Cleveland's going to be, top tier of the league or if they're going to be bottom tier of the league. Right now, looking odds, looking, ESPN put out a post today on Instagram looking at those odds about, who's ever winning the Super Bowl, is ESPN or NFL. And they were down there toward the end. So, I tend to agree with them on that one. Jumping to the next matchup, Dolphins and Chargers. That is a sneaky good game, and I would arguably say the matchup of the week, even though you have a Monday game. I mean, the Monday game's easily the matchup of the week, but this game is pretty close second, in my opinion. The Dolphins and the Chargers. That's hard. Who do you got in that one?
Dude, why'd you make me pick first?
It's hard. It's hard.
Really hard. I mean, I have to go with LA, and I just believe in Justin Herbert. I think he's gonna go out there and prove it. Like, I think he's a veteran in this league. Not saying like Tua on the other side isn't, but he's got so many weapons. He's got so many weapons, and he's got a lot of offensive capabilities. And like, Kellen Moore's in that system now, and Kellen Moore, I think he runs a really good system. I just didn't think Dallas was did very good at kind of executing it. But Justin Herbert, he's got an arm, and he's gonna sling that thing, and he's a pretty damn good quarterback. He's gonna make these plays, and against Miami, it's hard not to when you got Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and the new kid they drafted. Like,
yeah, the rookie wide receiver out of TCU, Quentin Johnson.
Not to mention Austin Eckler too, and their defense is killer as well. Like, with all their
Joey
stars
Bosa
on the board,
and Khalil Mack coming off the edges.
Oh gosh, dude! Like, with all their stars on the board, I think the Chargers are a better team. So I'm gonna give it to the Chargers. But who do you know what stadium they're playing at? Is it playing? Are they playing in SoFi or are they playing away?
I don't know if they're home or away. But all I know is that I think the Chargers are going to be a top team this year. I think the Chargers are going to, I think specifically Justin Herbert's going to take that next step. I think that he's in a year for top 5 quarterback in the league. And whether it's home or away, I got the Chargers. The Dolphins have a really good offense, and the Dolphins have the potential to score every single time they're on the field with their 2 wide receivers because you can't double cover both of them and speed. But the Chargers have a very good defensive line, like I was saying, with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa coming off the edges. You've got fast middle linebackers there. You've got Derwin James in the safety position, one of the best in the league. So that deep ball is going to be really hard to get anyway on them. So to me, that's kind of why I want to go Chargers, because they also have a pretty solid defense, in my opinion. Not saying Miami doesn't. Miami has a really good run defense because they got a lot of big bodies up front, but it's Austin Eckler. He's deadly out of the pass game. He's deadly in the run game if he wants to run outside. If he wants to run, I just think that they won't run it inside on Miami as much. I think they'll run it outside, and I do think Miami is a good AFC team, but I think that the Chargers and Miami are very close in terms of contention for wild card, because I don't think either of them are going to win their division. So that's why this game, it's week 1 and it's already an important game in the AFC, which is terrifying. But I got that. I got the Chargers. Like you said, they have way too many playmakers, and the Dolphins just aren't there yet. But once again, you never know with Tua. Tua could go out and throw 350, 353, and 4 tugs and 0 interceptions, and completely stop the Chargers, because you don't know what Chargers team is going to show up. That Chargers team, that plays the Chiefs, or is it the Chargers team that just lays down? You know what I mean? Against Jacksonville in the second half of last season in the playoff game. So you have no idea who's going to show up, but they got offensive playmakers. They got a new offensive coordinator, like you said. And like I said, Justin Herbert, that's my prediction for the season. He's going to be top 5 in the league. So
I like it.
Right now we have 3 of the same picks. Obviously, we're going to have the same pick for this next game. We have the Sunday night game. We're going to hit that every week too. The Cowboys and the Giants open it up on Sunday night. If you're watching, you can see who Tanner and I kind of already have picked this week. Obviously, the Cowboys haven't lost to the Giants, I'm pretty sure, in the past 3 years. So we've seen this song, we've seen this dance before. The Giants did get a lot better over the offseason. I'm not underestimating the Giants by any stretch of the means, but the Dallas Cowboys have a team that is arguably better than last season, and they addressed every single need coming into last season with a cornerback addition of Stephon Gilmore. So you have a glorified, starting number 2 cornerback right there. And then you have a defensive line who now can actually stop the run. Because if you watch the 49ers play the Cowboys in the playoffs, it was just running down their throat every single time, and you knew exactly what was going to happen, and they couldn't stop it. They got a guy that doesn't like football. He just likes to hit people with Mozzie Smith out of Michigan. So I think the Dallas Cowboys are going to take that one. Oh, and by the way, we haven't even started about the offense yet. You got Dak Prescott, regular season Dak Prescott. He's nasty. Then you got CeeDee Lamb, who's playing for a contract year. Yeah, he's probably going to hoop. You know what I mean? Oh, Tony Pollard's also playing on a contract year. Yeah, probably going to hoop too. Oh, and it's Tony Pollard's first year as a number 1 running back. Okay, yeah, offensive line's all healthy at this point because it's week 1. Okay, you got starting tight end play that's doing really well. And like I said, last 3 years it hasn't happened, so I'm not picking against them this year. I see Cowboys winning, or not winning the division, but literally only losing 1 game in the division this year to the Eagles. So.
Yeah, I mean, goddamn, I couldn't have said it better myself. I'm also going to pick the Cowboys.
That was a bit of a rant.
No, I mean, I think it's fair, though, because it's hard to pick against the Cowboys in this situation because, I mean, obviously a lot of people want to because the Giants, they have gotten better, but it's hard to pick against that Cowboys roster. I mean, I don't care what result that they have in the playoffs. Like, they're regular season warriors, and Dak has unfortunately dominated this division for the past however many years that he's been here. He's got a great record against the NFC East, and I don't think it's going to slow down anytime soon, especially with the Giants. He's been really good against the Giants throughout his career, and I mean, look at that roster, man. Like you said, it's Stephon Gilmore. I mean, Micah Parsons is going to wreak havoc over there. The only thing I'm like...
Sorry, forgot him.
Exactly. Like, come on. Like, if you didn't say Micah Parsons, and you still ramble off like 10 more names, it's insane. The only thing I'm scared about is the Giants and their defense, specifically their defensive line, because that is absolutely disgusting this year. You got Thibodeau, you got Lawrence, and like just a bunch of other like depth guys that are going to come in and they're going to make huge plays. I am a little scared for the Cowboys offensive line because while it is a good offensive line, I don't think it's like, the end all be all of offensive lines. There's a lot of, um, you know, Tyron Smith is pretty old. You don't know what's going to happen there. Some young guys too with Tyler Smith, and I don't really know what's
Terrence Steele.
Terrence Steele. Granted, he got a contract extension. And I really like him, and he's a veteran in this league at this point. But it's a lot of younger guys going up against a lot of experienced guys. So it's excluding like Kayvon Thibodeau.
Yeah, and the center play specifically is going to be a big point of concern, right? With Biotish, that's going to be a very big point of concern because, like you said, they have Dexter Lawrence and they have Kayvon Thibodeau who likes to rush inside because he uses his power and uses that swim move to get around the opposing offensive lineman. Now, Terrence Steele has played extremely well. We have Zach Martin on the offensive line, so if anybody's lining up against Zach Martin, I have Zach. Once again, like 13 sacks in the past, like however 9 seasons or something crazy like that. We talked about that a couple pods ago. I'm not picking against Zach Martin. So whoever's lined up against Zach Martin, if the defensive coordinator was what I'm assuming he's going to do is he's going to line up Thibodeau on the opposite side of Zach Martin. But at the same time, if you have Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon Thibodeau on the same side of Zach Martin, then it opens up the opportunity for one of them to get loose because Zach can't get both of them, especially if Dexter Lawrence is in front of you. That's probably a one-on-one matchup. And I'm not saying Kayvon Thibodeau's not, but at the same time, he's not at the level of Dexter Lawrence yet. Dexter Lawrence is out of Clemson, one of the best defensive tackles in the league. And they got, like you said, a lot of big bodies there too. Pretty sure they got Leonard Williams coming off the edge as well, and he plays a little bit of defensive tackle too. So really good depth too on the Giants, and they have the addition of an actual really good tight end. I would argue a tight end, when healthy, brings up old Giants fans that are really happy with Shockey. You know what I mean? That old school tight end. I'm not saying Darren Waller is anywhere player comp to him, but Darren Waller is, you can't argue when he's healthy, he's a top 5 tight end in the league, and Shockey was obviously a top 5 tight end in the league. So now they have a top 5 tight end in the league. They have Saquon Barkley that is fully healthy. You have an offensive line that needs work. You have a quarterback that, personally, to me, maybe he eats my words, but Daniel Jones is not an upper tier quarterback to me this year. And I don't see, he could get a couple tugs, but at the same time, who's he throwing to? You know what I mean? The Giants lack receivers. They have a good tight end, but at the same time, the Cowboys, I do think with Micah Parsons coming off the edge is not only going to wreak havoc, he's literally going to have to be double and triple teamed. And that also doesn't work in the past. And you have a fully healthy defensive line with once again run stopping ability. And when teams got down on Dallas, what they did is they ran the ball, and they actually came back because they could run it inside. I've seen Saquon do it a ton against the Cowboys. Now this year, we'll see how big the addition of Mozzie Smith is, but on obvious running situations, I think the Cowboys addressed their needs, and the Cowboys got beat by Trayvon Diggs once a game. He also got an interception once a game. But now you have a number 2 corner, and that number 2 cornerback slot was not solidified last year. Dallas traded Kelvin Joseph because he was that number 2 cornerback slot last year at one point in the beginning of the season. So it was a lot of not a lot of cornerback depth for the Cowboys last year, and they addressed that need. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I got the Cowboys winning on that one, and it's Sunday night. It's going to be a great time. Now,
before you go on, we have to do this. We have to do this. We do it every game, even when we're not together. Score predictions for the Cowboys. We got to do it. So, what are you thinking? You think this is going to be a blowout, or you think it's going to be real close, low scoring? What is it?
The Cowboy fan in me wants to say blowout. The Cowboy fan in me really wants to say blowout. First score that I thought in my head was 35-10, but I'm not there yet. You know what I mean? I'm not there yet. I'm actually gonna go 31-21 Dallas. I think that they're going to.
That's a good score.
Well, the big thing with Dallas is if they get off early to a couple touchdowns, then I think it's game over, because if Dallas gets rolling at the beginning of the game, there's very few teams in the NFL, in my opinion, that can stop them, Philadelphia included. There's very few teams that can stop them if they score on their first, second, and third possession. Or first and second possession, at least, not third. It's tough. You know what I mean? Because they really get rolling. That's the thing with the Cowboys, is they never start fast. Now, new offensive coordinator, new system. That's why I'm going to say 31. I think Tony Pollard's going to break one. I also think CD Lamb's going to break one. And I think you're going to have a really good tight end play with Jake Ferguson this week. And you're getting me more excited thinking about it. What's your score prediction?
I'm gonna go with. It's hard because I think it's gonna be a closer game. I don't think it's gonna be a 2 possession game at the end because I think the Giants are more real than they have been in recent memory. I think they're gonna make at least a splash in the NFL this season. So I think it's gonna be close. I'm gonna go Dallas 24, Giants 20. Yeah, I'm gonna get that.
That's a close game. I
It's
kind of like the lower scoring.
it's a 1 possession game, 4 points. You know, I like it though. There's some field goals in there. It's a good Sunday night game to kick off the season. I like it.
I'm hoping they make a bit more of a splash, but we'll see. Going to the Monday night game, my game of the week. It's the New York Jets and the Bills.
And the Bills.
And the Bills. The Bills that have not gone anywhere. Oh, and the Bills got the best tight end in the draft in the first round. They address need after need in the offseason. And Josh Allen and Diggs are ready and revved up to go. But you got Aaron Rodgers.
But
Now you're going against Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson. So
what's the verdict?
start us off, Tanner, because
Okay.
this one, I already know who I'm going, but this one was a lot harder for me to choose than the rest of the games.
It is. It really is. But I gotta go with my gut. And it might also be because my gut has implications in fantasy in multiple leagues. So
Same.
I'm gonna go with the Bills, you know, because I don't know. I just think they're pissed. I've said it a lot, but I just think the Bills are pissed. I think Josh Allen's pissed. I think Stephon Diggs is pissed. I think that defense, that head coach, they're all pissed. And they didn't want to go out like that last year in the playoffs. It was kind of a sad playoff performance overall from them. And I think they're mad. I think they're going to come out, and I think they're going to not destroy the Jets, but I think they're going to kind of put them in their place a little bit, you know? They're going to show them, like, you know, you're still the New York Jets, you know, and we're still the Buffalo Bills. We can still beat you. I think I don't pick against the Jets, you know, later in the season probably because I think they're going to get better over time. But right now, I think the Bills are going to take this game. I think it's going to be close, though. I think there's going to be multiple turnovers on both sides, and it's going to be a fun Monday night game.
Yeah, I mean the turnover conversation alone. I mean, you have arguably the number 2 cornerback in the league, number 1 cornerback in the league with Sauce Gardner. So I do think you're going to get a turnover there because Josh Allen likes to take shots. But I mean, you got Stephon Diggs against Sauce Gardner. I mean, what better matchup do you want? You know, week 1, you know, Justin Jefferson or maybe Jamar Chase, but that's not a bad matchup with the Jets and the Bills there. So, you know, the Bills I think have a better, or I mean, the Jets I think have a better running game. I think, yeah, they get the nod there in the running game. I
100%.
think the Bills, I think the Bills have better wide receivers. I think they get the nod there, and then I think quarterback play is going to ultimately be determined by, you know, whoever decides to show. I don't want to say whoever does decide to show up because they both always show up. You know what I mean? But I think Josh Allen. I agree with you. I think Josh Allen's going to come out and play mad, and I think that Stephon Diggs always comes out and plays mad. And it's Monday night, week 1. It's time to make a statement, especially if you're the Bills, because you don't know what's going to happen this offseason with Stephon Diggs. Yeah. You have no clue what's going to happen this offseason because Josh Allen or because Stephon Diggs wants to win. And if they get bounced early in the playoffs or if they're not having that great of a regular season, I'm not saying he's going to leave mid-year. But what I am saying is that question marks begin to rise. And we don't need those question marks for the Bills, right? We don't need those question marks because when the Bills are better and Josh Allen's hooping, that's a fun team to watch in the playoffs. And guess what? Barring the Cowboys, you know, get there and make the playoffs and go deep, we don't got to play them for a long time. You know what I mean? Till arguably the Super Bowl if they get there. So my thing is I can't pick against the Jets. And I also can't pick against the Chiefs. And I also can't pick against the Bengals. Those are the 3 teams in the AFC I can't pick against. Guess what? They play each other a lot. So, like, that's why this year is going to be, you know, so much fun. And in playoffs, we haven't even got there yet. But I don't think the Jets are there yet. I do think they're going to get better as the year goes on. I think that Garrett Wilson, Aaron Rodgers combo is going to be insane. I think the Dalvin Cook, in the backfield, I also think, you got Brees Hall back there too. Both of those running backs are going to be ready to go. And you got to figure out the workload between the two of them. You can lean on the run game on this team, which is crazy to say, even though you have Aaron Rodgers. But if Garrett Wilson's having a hard day one day, you can lean on the run game. And with the ability for Aaron Rodgers out of play action and the flick of the wrist that he does, it's really hard to actually get that guy down. And he has an upgraded offensive line. Actually, Packers have a pretty decent offensive line. They're a little bit aging, but the Jets have a pretty solid young offensive line too. Mm-hmm. So I got the Bills though. I think the Bills are a little bit overpowering at this point, and I think they're going to hand them their first loss of the season. But don't count off Aaron Rodgers and the Jets.
Yeah, I just got this feeling. I just feel like the Bills are going to come out and just be a really good team. It's kind of like last year when they did it, and everyone was like, "Oh, yeah, that's the Bills."
Exactly. It's hard to pick against the Bills. Now jump into the next segment. 5 teams with the most pressure entering Week 1. Going to start it off with the Cowboys. I think that's pretty obvious. I think the Cowboys every year have the most pressure coming into the league. And we kind of touched on it briefly, but Mike McCarthy, is no longer a Dallas Cowboy after next season because of his contract. CeeDee Lamb also needs to be signed to a contract, as well as Tony Pollard. So the players are going to be showing out. The coaching staff is going to need to show out, and you've got a new offensive coordinator there. Agree or disagree that the Cowboys are one of the teams with the most pressure entering Week 1, Tanner?
100% agree. I mean, look at the roster. You've seen them all off season. Look at the roster. They've drafted well, and honestly, this is probably one of the best rosters I've seen in recent memory. And they have a lot of expectations. They should go to the playoffs, and they should win more than a couple games. That's the expectation for Cowboys fans. That's the expectation that everyone else in the NFL holds. They should do this. Will they? I don't know. But 100%. And if they don't do it, like you said, I mean, Mike McCarthy is on the hot. He's on the hot seat. It sucks to say because I think he's been a good coach in Dallas. He's had back-to-back 12-win seasons, but he's on the hot seat. There needs to be more. It's Dallas Cowboys. You got to get to the playoffs. You got to make a run. So, 100%. If one of the most pressure situations in the NFL, especially for a head coach.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. Mike McCarthy is absolutely on the hot seat this season, even though he's won 12 games, and you've got a defensive coordinator there with Dan Quinn who's willing to step in immediately, and that's another player personnel that I didn't even mention coaching wise. So there's a lot of question marks this year in Dallas, and Dallas needs to win Week 1 and really show the NFL that they are a team in the NFC that is ready to make a playoff run. Jump into the next team. I think the Green Bay Packers, because post-Rodgers era is over. And you have the question, is Jordan Love the new guy? Every single team or analyst is picking the Packers to not be that great this season. You start looking at the odds, you start looking at their games, they're projected to lose kind of a lot of them. So my thing is the Packers are such diehard fans, have been so good because before Aaron Rodgers, they had a guy by the name of Brett Favre. They've been a very relevant team for a very long time. And this could be the first year that they are not relevant. So to me, that's a bit of pressure if you're Jordan Love and the Packers. Are you going to continue to, compete in the NFC? Or are you going to get a really good draft pick next year and not be that great?
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, they've had amazing quarterback play for basically all my life. I haven't seen a bad Packers team unless Aaron Rodgers was injured. So it's like, what is this offense going to be? What is it going to do? It's going to say a lot about the head coach. It's going to say a lot about the defense. You're going to learn so much more about the Packers, I think, than we previously thought about. And Jordan Love, is it a good idea to draft a first-round quarterback and let him sit for 3 or 4 years? So that's another thing that they're considering. So there's a lot of question marks, I think, around that team. But I mean, come on, 100%. Do you think? Side question? Do you think the Packers losing Aaron Rodgers to the Jets are the Jets a higher pressure situation than the Packers?
I think that the Jets could be arguably a higher pressure situation than the Packers just because you paid that much for a quarterback and
Yeah.
you traded for a quarterback. Like you if you're making a trade for a big name, then yeah, you're an obvious team that's just big time pressure on it. If Aaron Rodgers goes out there and goes like, you know, 6-11,
Pulls a
then
Russell
that's
Wilson.
not very good. Yeah, that's not very good, right? Like that's not necessarily the best thing, and a lot of your front office gets fired. Now, I don't think that's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers because a lot of people have him, Hall of Fame talk. So unless he, like you said, goes out and pulls a Russell Wilson, you know what I mean? Then I
That's
think
right.
I think he should be fine. But I absolutely do think that the Jets have more pressure than the Packers, but at the same time, the Jets haven't been that great in a while.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like to me, it's like I think Jets fans for sure, and I think around the league because it's Aaron Rodgers everywhere around the league. You're gonna have to have more pressure if you have Aaron Rodgers' name, but that's crazy to think about. It's like 20 years since the Packers have like not made the not been relevant. It's
Yeah.
like, and even then, it's like, dude, they've still been pretty decent, like a little bit before that too. So yeah, I absolutely agree, and I think that the Jets do have a ton of pressure on their backs now. Perfect segue because we just talked about this game. Bills, they have to have a good season because if they don't, their number one wide receiver is absolutely gone. So we kind of touched on that just briefly earlier, but man, that's a big pressure situation with the Bills, and not to mention with the Chiefs, and the Bengals. There, you can throw in the Ravens, you can throw in the Dolphins. You can throw in so many teams there with the Chargers too. There's so many Jacksonville. There's so many good AFC teams, and you cannot slip up in the AFC. And this is a huge game. So Bills, it's really time to go. You know what I mean? It's really time to go with this team.
I 100% agree. I mean, eh, imagine how Bills fans feel. They make the playoffs so many years in a row, and they just lose in these just heartbreaking ways. You know, I mean, all I can remember is just Patrick Mahomes driving down the field 13 seconds. You know, like I was watching that in College Station. I was like, this is not happening. And it happened.
You left him 13 seconds and he
13.
came back and won the game.
I have seen so many Cowboy games where we've had like a minute and a half and we don't even go down and score. Not even a field goal. We don't even get close. So 13 seconds to me is like insane. But regardless, the Bills, I kind of explained their situation as like, the Super Bowl window. It's almost shut. A lot of your big role players on defense and things like that, they're getting older. You're not going to see them stick around for a lot longer. The offense is really good. Don't get me wrong, but like you said, Diggs wants to win, and he's going to go to a team that will make him win. That's why he came to the Bills because remember he was on the Vikings, and the same things were happening in the playoffs. He was like, Minneapolis miracle aside, they got squashed in the next game. I'm pretty sure. So he wants to win and he wants to be on a good winning football team. So the Bills, their window is like this open. If you can't see me, it's like a peanut. It's a tiny opening. So
Exactly.
they got to win now. Is the short answer.
Yeah, they absolutely have to win now. And then another team that has to win now because they traded House to get a quarterback who did nothing, and now they just traded again to get a head coach with the Denver Broncos. Last year was a complete dumpster fire, and now this year there's quite literally no excuses. The only excuse that you had was the head coach and the system wasn't working. Well, that's now fixed, and Sean Payton is not only a head coach that has had success, but he has won a Super Bowl, right? So he's had the ultimate measure of success, and he's had great quarterbacks when he's been coaching in the NFL. Most recently with Drew Brees. So it's really hard to argue about his pedigree and everything he's done. Now, I don't know if him and Russell Wilson are necessarily gelling right now. I've been seeing some of the reports that's been coming out about some of the things that Sean Payton says in the locker room
I've
and
heard this.
and on the field, and I've seen some clips and everything. But my goodness, that man doesn't hold back. And Russell Wilson, he had Pete Carroll, so Pete Carroll also didn't hold back. But I think Pete was a little bit nicer. I don't know, but but Sean Payton aside, you have to perform, Denver Broncos, because you were supposed to, you literally did win the Super Bowl not too far ago, and since then, quite literally nothing has happened.
Mm-hmm.
So that team has to go out there and start to play well, because once again, there's no excuses, and that's an NFC team that could easily make a splash if Russell Wilson doesn't have a season like he had last year.
I mean, do you remember when that trade went down? And we were all like, "Oh my gosh, the Broncos are going to be like so good this year. Their roster is insane. You know, they've got Jerry Jeudy, they got Cortland Sutton on offense, and you got Russ throwing to him, a Pro Bowl quarterback throwing to those guys. Finally, you know, and then their defense at the time was insane. You know, Pat Surtain alone is just probably one of the best defensive players in this league. So I think absolutely the pressure should be to the roof because you're not going to see him in the draft, so the team's not going to get a lot different here pretty soon. So they got to win with what they got.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's going to do it for this segment, because you hit, all five of my teams with the Jets there. So you nailed that one at the end.
What? Well, maybe let's put in a different team. You know, let me substitute. Let's talk about.
Okay.
I was thinking about this. What about the Ravens? What do you think the pressure level is for the Ravens and Lamar Jackson?
I mean, he just signed, it's hard because I think pressure's always going to be up in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Lamar has the most pressure he's had in his career right now, because they cannot not miss the playoffs. You know what I mean? They have to make the playoffs this year, but that's a hard, not only division to make the playoffs in, but just the conference with the AFC alone. Like, you got to have a really good year to even be in contention for that wild card game. So I absolutely do think the Ravens are going to have a ton of pressure on them this year, but not much has changed for the Ravens. So it's like for me, it's like Lamar got more money. They drafted a number one wide receiver that was quite literally, like you said a couple episodes ago, the exact same as Hollywood Brown. Yeah, they got the addition of Odell Beckham. I mean, Roquan Smith and everything there. I mean, it's just hard because there's so many questions. You know what I mean with that team?
Mm-hmm.
Their defense is going to be solid, but the AFC is a better offense, in my opinion, than the NFC. So they're going to have to face harder quarterbacks and way better, not way better wide receivers, but I think better wide receivers in some respects. So it's tough for me. I do think they have a ton of pressure coming in this year, but if Lamar plays like MVP Lamar, that team's going to win. But he has to play like that. And Rashad Bateman, a wide receiver that they drafted early, needs to step up, because if he doesn't, he's going to be gone. Odell Beckham, that's clearly the number 2 now. Does Odell have some left in the tank? Their new number 1 wide receiver in the first round. Can he catch a deep pass? Because Marquise Brown had a problem at the beginning of his career catching deep passes. Yeah, he burned him, but Lamar had trouble hitting him. And when he did hit him, Marquise had kind of trouble catching it sometimes. So there's a lot of questions there. Is Lamar a better passer than he has been the previous season? Yeah, I think every year he gets to be a little bit better passer. His legs are always going to be there, but how do you make the playoffs in the AFC?
I don't know. It's an interesting situation because, like, if the Ravens were in the NFC, I think they're a lock to make the playoffs. You know, depending on what their division they're in, of course, but at least a lock to make a wild card at that point. But they need to make the playoffs. I think for that team to consider that season a success at least. You know what I mean? So it might almost like not be their fault in some ways because their conference is so stacked. I mean, it's just hard to say like, oh man, we just lost to the Chiefs, man. Well, that was a tough loss. No, it's not. It's the Chiefs. You know what I mean? Like I mean, obviously, like you want to win that game, but you're not going to feel as bad if you were to lose to like the Cardinals or something, you know, or just like someone else from the same division, you know, like the Broncos, because they sucked last year. So it's like, I don't know. I can't imagine a world where like someone doesn't get snubbed out of the AFC.
They have to.
Someone's
the Chargers, the Dolphins, the Ravens. It's one of those teams. I don't know. In my opinion, the Jets too. The Jets. That's another team that it could absolutely be. Those 4 teams. I mean, that's insane.
Those are 4 playoff teams. 4 playoff teams, and there's 3 wild card slots.
Easily. Jump into 5 must-start players for Week 1.
Okay.
Here we go. Speaking of Lamar Jackson, that's why we got to talk about it. It's Lamar Jackson versus the Texans, folks. It's Lamar Jackson versus the Texans. They are a young defense with very new coaching, very new systems, brand new quarterback, very young running back, very young offensive line. There's a lot of young talent on the Texans, and the Ravens, I think, are going to have a field day with the Texans because I don't think the Texans are anywhere near where they're going to be in the next couple of years. So I think Lamar Jackson is an absolute must start for Week 1.
Yeah, I'm 100%. I've seen Lamar carve up more, bad AFC teams than I can remember. So, well, he likes to perform against, typically under 500 teams. I'm not saying the Texans will be under 500. You don't know. The season hasn't even started.
They will.
Hey, give them a chance. Give them a chance. They can do it. No. Hey, C.J. Stroud. Dalton Schultz. Come on, man.
That quite literally doesn't scare me at all. That doesn't. You should have led with Damian Pierce. That doesn't scare me. That doesn't scare me at all. I'm not even. It's the AFC, dude. Well, no way. You know what I mean? No shot.
The Baltimore's going to run all over him in a lot of ways. Lamar Jackson's probably going to have like 100 yards rushing. So 100% start him. He's probably one of the best fantasy quarterbacks that there is in the NFL. So go for it.
Absolutely. And then jumping to number 2, this is going to be a reoccurring theme. Whoever plays Arizona, start the defense and start both of the running backs, if not 4 of the running backs, if you can. I don't think Arizona is going to be a good team. Washington's playing them this week. I think you absolutely need to start Washington's defense. Kyler's not even playing. They have other injuries as well. The only player they have on offense, in my opinion, is James Conner, and you kind of know what to do to stop James Conner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know exactly what they do to stop James Conner. And then you have Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson with 1 and 2. And right now, those 2 are some very good running backs. So I think you absolutely got to start both those running backs in the Washington defense because I think Arizona is going to be in contention for that number 1 pick.
And dude, it stinks. I'm playing against Washington's defense this week too because it's
ouch.
I know they're going to put up like 20, 25 points. I mean, look
at least
look at it. It's like I remember when Denver had lost. I think it was like Drew Lock at that time, and they didn't have a quarterback to play, so they played. I think his name was like Kendall Hinton or something like that. At quarterback, he was like a receiver. Oh my gosh, that was one of the worst offensive performances I've ever seen. And I picked up their defense, and I was like, well, I guess I called that. So
yeah,
unsure quarterback play is pretty good if you're a fantasy defense going against that unsure quarterback play. It's just one of those things.
You have to trust it. And if you're looking for a defense this week, that is the pickup of the week. By the way, you have to pick up Washington's defense against Arizona. New quarterback starting, new scheme. I mean, there's just a lot going on there in Arizona that I don't think is going to be happening.
Not to mention Washington actually has a good defense, so it's not a bad pickup in the slightest. You know what I mean? Like that defensive line is going to have a cake day.
They have a very good defensive line, very young, defensive line from, Alabama specifically, you know what I mean, with those
Yes.
with those 2 up there. And then they have Chase Young coming off the edge. So James Conner's not running up the middle, which he's very good at. Running on the outside, good luck, because Washington does have some speed. So, yeah, I think Washington's defense is going to have an absolute field day. And then jumping to number 3, I think you got to start Kirk Cousins against the Bucs. I know that's absolutely insane to say, but the Bucs don't have a defensive back that can cover Justin Jefferson, and that is another team that's going to have a ton of unsure quarterback play, if not multiple starting quarterbacks throughout this season.
Whoa.
I know. Whoa. I know you're a big Baker guy. Whoa. Me too. But at the same time, dude, come on. You know what I mean? Come on. Like
he's dangerous. Okay.
I'm not saying he's not. But if you lose a couple games, there's no way. There's no way as a head coach you can say, oh no, I can't not start another quarterback because your job's on the line. You know what I mean? Baker is a starter for week 1, but we'll see what happens throughout the rest of the season. But with Baker starting means more interceptions.
Yes.
And it also means potentially more explosive plays.
That's
but
true.
At the same time, I think that team is going to be off the field a lot more because Baker likes to take shots. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the shots are out of nowhere, a dime, out of nowhere. I've been following Baker since he was a high school quarterback in literally in Texas, right up the street from where I went to high school, not far at all. So not saying I'm not a Baker fan. I'm a huge Baker fan. I'm just a realist, and I've watched football for a very long time, and that's my prediction. I'm a couch warrior. You know what I mean? So
I get it.
I think that the Vikings are going to be on the field more than they're supposed to be, and you have Justin Jefferson, who you really need to just keep off the field. And if you let him get on the field, I mean, they're not going to be able to cover him. I think Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins, like Justin Jefferson's a must start every week. Like no matter who he plays, he's a must start every week. So that's why I'm not even putting him in this conversation. But I got to put his boy Kirk in there. You know what I mean? I think he's going to eat this week.
Yeah, I agree. I love Baker. Don't get me wrong, but that might be an interception fest because the Vikings defense is actually pretty good. If you've been watching it, I mean, did you watch them last season? They beat the Bills. That was crazy. So I like Kirk Cousins in this matchup. I really do. But I don't know. Something about me is just like, okay, Baker Mayfield. He's got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. You know, it's fun, and his offensive line is pretty good too. You know, so it's like he's in a good situation. If Baker were to ever make a splash in his NFL career, I think it would be right now.
I mean, yeah, you could see it. I mean, he did take Cleveland to the promised land, went to the playoffs. You know what I mean?
So he took Cleveland out of a hole.
Yeah, a lot of quarterbacks, where, you got the duct tape on the back of the jersey just rolling all the way down when you're walking down the street like a cape. You know what I mean? He did take him out of the hole. No disrespect toward Baker at all, but yeah. I just see Kirk Cousins feasting this game. Somebody else that's about to feast. He's a rookie. Crazy that you got to say must start rookie in week 1, but Bijan Robinson's playing the Panthers. And in my opinion, the Panthers are another team, they just had, they just got really, really high up there for the number 1 draft pick. So just saying the Panthers aren't necessarily the best team. Yes, they've gotten better over the offseason for sure, but I don't think that defensive line or those linebackers are going to be able to block Bijan. And I think why I drafted Bijan in 2 out of my 4 fantasy leagues, you're going to see why. You're gonna see why, and he is just going to maul this Panthers team. I do think that the Falcons are going to be noticeably better on the offensive side of the ball with the addition of Bijan Robinson and the pressure that is taking off of Kyle Pitts and the pressure that's taking off Desmond Ridder. So that's why I got Bijan as a must start. Notice I did not say Desmond Ridder. Notice I did not say Drake London. Notice I did not say Kyle Pitts. Just Bijan is my must start on that Falcons team because they can hand him the rock and he's going to run loose on that Panthers team.
What are you predicting his stat line's going to be?
I think his first game in the NFL he has over 100 yards rushing.
I like it.
I'm serious.
It's bold. I'm serious. And I like it.
I'm serious. Who on that team is going to stop him? Brian Burns? Who's going to stop him on the defensive line? Nobody. Nobody's going to stop him on the defensive line. There's no way. I think he's going to break a 20-yard run, and then you're going, well, shit, it's halftime, and he's at 60. What are you going to do? You know what I mean? That game's going to be close because no disrespect to Atlanta, but their defense isn't great either. So that game, I think, is going to be relatively close. So Bijan's going to be able to run the ball. I don't think the Panthers are going to be up on him. The only time you're not allowed to run the ball is when you're down by a lot of points, and you're telling me the Panthers are going to come out, Bryce Young's going to start diming it up? No shot.
Yeah, I agree.
No shot.
I agree.
That's my Bijan rant.
It's hard to pick against him, man. I mean, he looks so good. He's so fun to watch. I think that offense is going to take a huge step forward this season. With the addition of Bijan Robinson, come on. I mean, it's just going to open up so many avenues for the passing game, and so much like misdirection, like in the eyes of the defense. Like they're just not going to know what they're going to do. Like, I mean, it's just Bijan. I mean, I make Dallas Cowboys references, but like you saw what Zeke did to the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, they were terrible the previous year, and Zeke comes in. And he helps out Dak a tremendous amount. You know, Dak won that Rookie of the Year, but it probably should have been Zeke. I love Dak, but Zeke was insane that year. You know, so a running back can absolutely transform an offense, and I think Bijan's going to do it with the Falcons.
I absolutely do too. I absolutely think going to transform that offense. And somebody else that is going to continue to transform the offense and is another must start for week one is Dallas Cowboys wide receiver CeeDee Lamb, because CeeDee Lamb has had some great games against the New York football Giants. And guess what?
New York.
It's a contract year for CeeDee Lamb. And Dak Prescott also plays pretty well against the Giants. Name me one cornerback on their team that's going to stop him. Name me a cornerback on their team that's going to hold him to under 100 yards. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's over 100 yards. I think he gets a touchdown too, and I think he really shows you why he should be one of the top paid wide receivers. Butchered that one up. Wide receivers in the NFL, because of his play, is going to elevate so much this season. And once again, it's a contract year. Dallas hasn't lost to the Giants in 3 years, largely apart past couple years because of CeeDee Lamb.
Fair enough. Hey, I'm all for betting on the 88. I'm all for it. Is that all you got for the must starts?
That's my must starts. You got anybody to add?
No, I don't think so. I'm just ready to get on the must don'ts.
We have got the last segment of the podcast, and the one that has been asked about actually most by the fans, because we get some pretty interesting fantasy lineups submitted to us. I don't know what some people are doing, but hey, listen, we got you. 5 must sit players for week one. This is pretty easy, folks. Matthew Stafford. Cooper Kupp got ruled out today and is potentially going to be put on the IR. I would probably sit Matthew Stafford, in my opinion. When your number one wide receiver goes out and there's not a whole lot else, you got to throw to on that team. No disrespect to anybody, but I mean, I don't think so, man. I don't think that's a very good start. What do you think?
I agree. Who are they playing?
Oh my gosh, I literally don't even have that. Let me look in 2 seconds. I can tell you. But
I like this. I like this take. Just because they don't got Cooper Kupp, don't start Matthew Stafford. I mean, I understand. I get it. I don't know what my expectation is for Matthew Stafford coming into this season. You know what I mean?
what is your expectation for the Rams? Because I was kind of high on the Rams, but right now I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they're only 2 years removed from the Super Bowl, including this year. Last year was like a gap year almost. So
that's right. They play the Seahawks.
Oh, ooh. They're getting better.
That's a tough matchup.
I think so. But it's a division rival, so that's a good thing, especially for the Rams. Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. I think don't start him if you've got a different quarterback. Hey, if you got Baker Mayfield in there, you got to do a little research, get him in there. No, please don't do that. Pick a different quarterback. Go get someone else, please.
Tanner's on the Baker train, but no, not really. Another quarterback to not start, Kenny Pickett. Big reason, playing arguably the best defense in the league with the 49ers, and their boy Nick Bosa just got paid. So if I were you, I would keep Kenny Pickett on the bench. I know you really want to. I know that George Pickens may also be another start, but I would put both of them on the bench. Najee, it's very hard to sit Najee Harris because he's a running back one, and there's so many running back by committees in this league. But if for some reason you have a stellar running back one, I wouldn't start Najee either, because this 49ers defense is legit. And not only is this defense legit, their defensive line got better with the addition of Hargrove from the Philadelphia Eagles, the best defensive tackle in the league last season. So yeah, you're not really going to run on him if you're the Steelers. So really, sit him is going to be all of the Steelers' offense, in my opinion.
I mean, put the Steelers up and watch the Niners knock them down. That's all I gotta say. That's tough. Sorry, Kenny. It was a good preseason. But they're gonna go 0-1.
Absolutely. Another one, we got jumping to the running backs. Ramondre Stevenson from the New England Patriots. You just don't know what's going to happen. One, it's the New England Patriots. You have no clue who's going to run the ball. Whoever gets hot that game, Bill Belichick typically runs it. But the addition of Ezekiel Elliott in the red zone, specifically in fantasy, scares me. Mm-hmm. Because Ramondre Stevenson gets a lot of his fantasy points in that red zone because, I've had him for the past couple of years. Some games he gets 20, some games he gets 2. You know what I mean? I think this could be a game where he could probably between the range of 5 to 10, but I don't necessarily see him getting a touchdown, especially because I didn't mention he plays the Eagles defense. you're not going to be able to run on the Eagles defense. If anybody's going to be able to run on the Eagles defense, it's Zeke. This game, it might be kind of interesting for Patriots fans because they might see the addition of Ezekiel Elliott. They might be leaning on him a little bit more just because of how much experience he has against the Philadelphia Eagles. But I just don't see Ramondre Stevenson having himself a day against the Eagles. What do you think?
I think that his fantasy value went way down whenever they signed Zeke. I just 100% for the reason you said. Zeke is at a point in his career where he can slam it into the end zone and he can't do much else. So that's probably what they're going to use him to do. So that takes a lot of points away from Stevenson, and weirdly enough, kind of gives Zeke a positive outlook. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if Zeke breaks a 20-yard run and has a touchdown, every other week, not too bad. You could stick him in your flex if you absolutely need to, but I wouldn't be going out
I
and
wouldn't
getting.
bet on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet on that. But Ramondre Stevenson, sorry, I know you thought he was a running back one when you drafted him, but it's he is, but it's a little bit scary right now in New England. Not only the running back situation, but just what's going to happen this year overall. Next one, we got Devontae Adams. That's crazy to say not to start Devontae Adams. Well, here's why. He's playing the Broncos, and he's playing Patrick Surtain, and they're going to shadow Patrick Surtain most likely on Devontae Adams. Now,
That's a hard one.
obviously, if you don't have, if you don't have another wide receiver one, definitely start Devontae Adams. But personally, for me, if I've got two wide receiver ones, I'm sitting Devontae just because if you look at the numbers against Pat Surtain, just go have a day. There's a reason this kid's number one or number two in the NFL. Not a lot of receivers play very well against him. And when he does shadow, which he absolutely will this week against the Raiders, because there's not another offensive weapon that really, he needs to be on. I think that's, when you're playing a corner at that level, I would put him at the level of, years ago when Richard Sherman in the regular season, you didn't start players against when you were playing Richard Sherman. Like you really didn't. I think Pat Surtain and Sauce Gardner right now in the NFL are those two players. And if I have a wide receiver going against him, unless it's, but Devontae Adams is arguably a top 10 wide receiver, but it's hard for me to start him when he's playing Pat Surtain. And oh, by the way, I think Oakland got worse. So that's just my opinion. What do you think?
I mean, I'm amazed you went on that rant and you didn't mention Jimmy Garoppolo.
At the
Because
very end.
I mean, you kind of like insinuated, but
Yeah.
it's kind of it's hard because obviously Devonte Adams is really good and he's coming off of a really good season with arguably like inconsistent quarterback play. So in your mind you can go like, yeah, I'm gonna take a chance on him, and I think you should. That there's not a reason that you shouldn't because it's Devonte Adams, but I agree with the Pat Surtain comment. I don't put enough faith in Jimmy Garoppolo to make Devonte Adams that number one wide receiver this week specifically. Next week it could be a different story. I don't know who the Raiders are playing next week, but Devonte Adams is going to get his. I just don't think it's going to be in the first game. We could be wrong though. We could be wrong.
Could be. Last one, Michael Pittman, another number one wide receiver. I would not start Michael Pittman mainly because he's got a quarterback in Anthony Richardson who is starting his first NFL game. And they also don't have Jonathan Taylor. I'm pulling out their schedule right now. They also don't have Jonathan Taylor because, as you remember, he is on the PUP list. It's a divisional game. It's against the Jaguars. So the Jaguars don't necessarily have the best defense, but at the same time, Michael Pittman, when you have a quarterback that's Anthony Richardson, that hasn't played a ton of games, doesn't have a whole lot of NFL experience in historically quarterbacks struggle in their first year, especially quarterbacks that rely on their legs so much like Anthony Richardson does. And the Jaguars, I think this year have a chance to establish themselves as number one in that division. And they're opening week one with a division matchup. I think that the Jaguars have an opportunity to go out there with the addition of Calvin Ridley, every single person that they drafted that has now made the team practically, and all the additions on defense that they've continued to have and continue to get consistent play from. So the Jaguars are going to be a good team, especially in that division. And opening up against the Colts, I'm not on the Colts hype train. I don't think the Colts defense is not too bad, but your best offensive player is out for the first 4 weeks. You have a rookie quarterback who does show some promise at the NFL Combine, also in preseason, but not necessarily the best training camp. I know he's in the building and it's his off day. No disrespect to Anthony Richardson, but this is a different league. And I've seen a lot of quarterbacks that have had numbers similar to Lamar Jackson. No one better. He has numbers better than Lamar Jackson in terms of combine, but Lamar took a little bit to get up there. You know what I mean? Week one, the number one wide receiver, that's tough to play, especially against a Colts team that has a pretty big defensive line specifically, so he's going to have to be thrown over those guys, even though Anthony Richardson is a massive human being. But still, he's running quarterback first, in my opinion, and he needs to develop his passing game year over year, and being the number one wide receiver in that offense is a little scary.
Yeah, I agree. If Jonathan Taylor were playing, this would be a different story. I would say that right now. But he's not, and he's on the PUP list, so he's gone for at least 4 weeks. So you're going to see a whole lot of Anthony Richardson snapping the ball directly to him and, passing the ball. The offense is going to go through pretty much just him, I imagine, because they want to get him reps because that's what he needs. So I think there's going to be some learning pains, some growing pains, some unfortunate, learning setbacks. I don't know what this first game's going to entail because it is a divisional matchup. You can never really predict those, but it's hard for me to go with Anthony Richardson. It just is. And if I can't go with him, why would I go with his number one wide receiver? You know what I mean?
Exactly. And Jacksonville and Indianapolis always play each other really well. So
yes.
that's the other thing. And Jacksonville now has a quarterback that I also think is going to take that next step. They got way better on the offensive side of the ball too. Their tight end got re-signed. Their offensive line is pretty good. So I do think that the Jaguars are clearly the best team in that division. But that's all I got for the sit-in players of the week. Tanner, what do you think? You got any more players that we should sit, or should we end this thing?
I think we need to kind of turn the wheel a little bit because I want to talk about this, and I think it's going to be an amazing matchup. But in college football, this Saturday, we got UT playing Alabama. That's going to be a fun matchup to watch because I know I'm going to be watching it on Saturday, waiting for the NFL to start on Sunday. But that match is going to be good. That match is going to be fun. I don't know. UT, I watched their season opener, and they looked really good against Rice. And Bama's Bama, so they're always going to show up. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, I'm an Aggie, but UT's looking good.
Also an Aggie over here, Gig'em. But dude, UT, looked a little bit slow in the first quarter against Rice last weekend. Then they kind of turned it on and went. Rice, it should never be a close game. Alabama also looked really good last week as well. So I think that it's pretty hard to pick against Alabama. I'm going to personally go with Alabama, but this is the year that Alabama hasn't necessarily had that top quarterback in the nation. They still have a really good defense. They still have really good skill players, but they don't have that top quarterback in the nation, and you need that to win in college football. You need that because when was the last year a national championship was won without a top tier quarterback or a quarterback that at least went into the NFL and made a bit of a splash? You can argue Cardell Jones with Ohio State, but that was one season, that you can't really put that one up there. He went in there and did it. But other than that, can't really think of any other quarterbacks or teams that have made it that far without the quarterback play. So that's my biggest question with Alabama this season is how good are they in terms of their offense with that potentially inconsistent quarterback play? And UT, are they ready for the SEC? Because UT is coming over next year, and this not necessarily is going to be a future matchup, but they will be playing more. You know what I mean? They're not going to be in the same division or conference within the conference or however they changed it up. But this is going to be a big game, and this arguably a game in week 2 is pretty interesting to me. I would have put it closer to kind of like the recruiting deadline. You know what I mean? Just because this could swing a lot of recruits earlier in the season. I don't know if you necessarily having a lot of guys committing this early, but this is a huge game. And it also has implications I think it could have had more implications in the future for recruiting. But if UT goes out and wins, I think the only other team that did that in the regular season that really really stunned him was Auburn
Yeah,
and
I remember that.
A&M,
Yeah.
and that's it. Other than that, I don't think any other team has gone out in the regular season and stunned Alabama. This would be a stun. And Quinn Ewers for UT is playing really good football, but he hasn't played Alabama this season. So
Yeah.
how is he going to match up against Alabama? How does any quarterback match up against Alabama? That's a huge game that I want to watch and going to watch as well, because Quinn Ewers, he's a guy that could potentially be in the NFL. So you really, really have to watch against these top talented teams. But I got Alabama. I do think it'll be a closer game. But my biggest thing is, how does UT's defense hold up against this offense? You know what I mean? Does Alabama's offense, is UT's defense even good enough to compete with the
Mm-hmm.
Alabama offense? I don't know. I watched him play Rice. I don't know yet. You know what I mean? I don't know if they are, but they looked pretty solid last week. And once again, it was against Rice, but they looked solid. And I think that they're going to definitely make a splash in the SEC. And once again, every game that is against the Alabama Crimson Tide when Nick Saban's there, it's hard to pick against them.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the only reason I kind of bring it up is because um, the game last year with Alabama and Texas was really close. So it's kind of like
It was close.
it's kind of it can be up there. I don't remember what the rankings were at the time, but I don't think they were very close. So um, I just got a feeling. I'm not saying I got a feeling that Texas is going to win, but I just got a feeling that they could do something really funny this weekend.
I think it absolutely has the opportunity for an upset. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they're last time I saw the rankings, it was 4-11. They could have gone up. Alabama could have gone, down or up. But I think if UT wins, they enter the conversation of top five, and that enters the conversation of college football playoffs. So,
Mm-hmm. That's right.
you know, with the expansion that they're making in the college football playoff, there's a lot more teams are going to be there, but it's a big game, and I think easily the biggest game of the season. And last week, the big game of week one was Florida State and LSU, and it was very close until after halftime, and then Florida State stomped them.
That was
It
a good
wasn't
game.
even close. I watched that whole game, and Florida State looked like a completely different team in the second half, and so did LSU. And LSU lost that very very high ranking, which for SEC fans and A&M that has to play LSU, that's not the best in terms of strength of schedule toward the end of the season. But hey, if A&M's sitting there winning every game, then I'm not going to be too mad. But I didn't expect that outcome last week. I did not expect Florida State to go in there and beat LSU. I did not. If you had asked me to pick that game, I would have picked LSU, just like I'm picking Alabama. So, hey, maybe the SEC loses 2 weeks in a row, but I think it's going to be 1-1 after this one.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we had another big upset too last week as well with Colorado and TCU. I know you
And
watched that game,
Clemson and Duke.
and Clemson and Duke. I
Yeah,
it's why I love college football. You never know what's gonna happen. But the Colorado game that was insane. That's probably one of the best performances I've seen in a long time. Just period by an overall team. By individual players as well. It's just, Colorado just looked like the much better team.
they did. They were better coached. Players played better, and a lot of the experts are saying that TCU is exposed. I have a lot of friends that are TCU fans, and none of my friends that are TCU fans, aside from a couple, are very high on them this season. So I kind of through the grapevine with my friends, kind of saw this one coming with TCU. I didn't necessarily have Colorado picked to win, but I definitely didn't have TCU finishing that high at the end of the season. But it's pretty simple. It's a kid on their team. Deion Sanders' son. Went out there and threw what 4 or 5 touchdowns. I know it was four. It could have been
Yeah,
five. His
it was
stat
a
line
lot.
was absolutely incredible against a top ranked team at the time, and puts him number one in Heisman contention right now for sure after 1 week. And then
Yeah,
you have Travis Hunter, who's a wide receiver, gets over 100 yards, and then gets an interception. And you're playing not only in college football, you're playing against a top ranked team, and you're doing that. That is insane. That kid alone on that performance probably got himself drafted.
yeah,
Like, quite literally on that performance alone, probably got himself drafted if he does nothing else for the rest of his college career in the sixth or seventh round because of that one game. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that's going to happen. I think Travis Hunter's the real deal. And I think that Deion really knows he's the real deal, because why would he put him on offense and defense when he got rid of practically the entire team that was there? Everybody said Deion, The way he was running the program was not good and everything. I don't know the details of the program, right? Just a couch warrior myself, but that team looked like they were a team ready to run through the wall. And now Colorado is ranked for the first time since, I'm pretty sure, Mason Crosby was the kicker there. You know what I mean? Like, Colorado has not necessarily been a football school. So the fact that they are in the top 25 now and beat that highly ranked of a team, it's an exciting time to be a Colorado fan.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, it was just so much fun to watch. I mean, it was electric. That team just looks ready. They look fun. And they look like they're having fun. And like you said, I just think the biggest thing is they're just so well coached. I love Dion. I just think he's. How do you go from being, what were they last year, like 1-11 or something like that, to that performance right there at a season opener? I
And
think
opening it up against that highly ranked of a team.
I know. I mean, look at that matchup on paper. You're just like, oh my gosh, we just had the worst season we've had in so long, and now we got to go up against TCU, who was in the college football playoffs last year. Like, come on, man, that's unlucky. And they go out there and they win. They just say, well, I don't care about your schedule. I don't care. We're gonna win this game, and we're gonna look good doing it. So I like that team. I think that it's fun.
Yeah.
I think the quarterback had like 500 yards. They made
It's
him look
it's it's
silly.
a very yeah, it's a very fun team to watch, and yeah, I mean it's a heck of a team to watch. We're going to see how long he stays on the Heisman race and see how long Colorado keeps it going. And then, you have Duke that just absolutely stuns Clemson.
Yeah.
Clemson isn't been the team of old since Trevor Lawrence left. Clemson has, kind of not necessarily fallen off, but kind of sort of fallen off, you know what I mean? And
Hmm.
Duke went out there and won. And Duke's quarterback asked for an extension on his paper. The professor said no. Hilarious. He told him that his offensive lineman already did it and he should have planned. Like, yeah, that's what happens. You know what I mean? But you go out there and you beat Clemson as Duke. I see it going around Twitter that they're a football school now. Pump the brakes a little bit, please. You won a lot of basketball championships, but I'm not sure about football school. I do think that might have won you some recruits, but I don't know, man. Clemson's not really the team that they used to be. So it was an upset, but at the same time, to me, it wasn't really in that category where you can put it in the Colorado, you know what I mean, or Florida State beating
Hmm.
LSU. I can't really put it there, but I mean, it was a decent game to watch, and Duke looked pretty dang good. So I thought it was a pretty decent one. And Colorado, I'm going to be tuning in every week now. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, college football's back. And lastly, we'll hit on A&M.
They looked good.
A&M's offense showed up to play, and A&M's defense showed up to play. Given they weren't playing, no disrespect, but they weren't really playing that big of a team. And the starting quarterback for A&M, Connor Wigman, went out there and played and showed you why he was a 5-star recruit coming out of Texas. He showed you why he was a 5-star recruit, and played very well. And that's needs to continue to happen for the rest of the season for A&M to be not only winning but to be relevant in the SEC, because like I said, with inconsistent quarterback play, two losses and you could be out of this thing.
Oh,
So
easily, you
yeah,
could be out of this thing.
and you love to see it because of the highly touted recruiting class that A&M had, the number one recruiting class ever of all time. Usually those recruiting classes take a little bit of time to get going, and I think you saw that in week one, the recruiting class, everybody looked way better than they did at any point they did last season. So that's really something you like to see. The A&M has one of the best wide receivers in the nation too. We're going to keep working on that the whole season. So here we go. The Aggies are playing, and we're about to see what happens for the rest of the season.